Hey, YouTube. You find me in another old t-shirt, though this one's not quite as old. I had these made back in 2011. I gave them out as promotional stuff, and I think this one was in some way soiled, so I kept it. And now it's pretty faded. So I'm going to talk about the book that wouldn't burn and how it's done in its first month. I tend to keep track of these sorts of things for the first month because it's sort of fun for promotional purposes to say, yes, we're heading towards 1,000 ratings, or yes, this many reviews, and just to get these numerical milestones as a basically a way to, without sounding too hectoring, remind my readers on social media, have you rated it and possibly reviewed this book yet? Because that helps me and helps the sales of it. And rather than just sort of repeatedly saying, have you done it yet? If I talk about the number of ratings, for example, like 10 away from 1,000 help out, then it's a more encouraging way of interacting. Um, and today, I believe, the 10th, so we are one day past the month anniversary of the American release and one day shy of the monthly anniversary of the UK release. Um, and it's hit just over 1,500 ratings, which is pretty good going, to be honest. I don't think any of my books recently have come near that. I think probably Red Sister did better, but like The Girl in the Moon was on about 800 ratings at this point. And a nice high average showing that people are enjoying the book. Um, I'll stop um, watching them um, now after the first month because it's not, uh, I don't think, for anyone a particularly good thing to dwell on. It doesn't help your equilibrium if you are um, focused on the individual ups and downs on a day by day basis. And really, a writer should be thinking about writing, not about how the book that they wrote several years ago is faring. Um, I think it can be quite grinding. Ace, my American publisher, now for some years have had a sort of a website where any of their authors can go and they can look at the actual sales on a day by day basis. And I've done that maybe on 3 occasions in 5 years because, again, it's not something I have any control over, and it doesn't help me in any way. Um, I'd rather just wait every 6 months and I'll get the royalty statement, and that will give me a feeling for how a book is doing. Um, and I did a tweet for the monthly anniversary, and here you can see that the number of ratings on Goodreads over, I think it's more than a month there, but this this bit here is since release. And you can see how it jags up and down because that's just how statistics work. So if you were to be looking at it day by day, you say, oh my gosh, I got 71 or whatever ratings on this day. And no, it's plummeted to below 50. And you would be sort of, well, I would go, even though I would know that it wasn't significant and it's this sort of trend, that's the thing. It's still not good to sort of focus on those things. And this is quite a nice rise. You can see actually, if you were to plot a sort of an average curve through there, that whilst it's flattening out, we still may not have reached the peak. So um, and these lag the actual sales because these are the people reading and then taking the trouble to rate on Goodreads. But you can see that at this point the trend is still rising. I did some these are AI art from Midjourney of some characters from the book, and I did them. They're just a bit of fun, and I sent them to. I've commissioned a piece of artwork from artist Tom Brown, not to be confused with artist Tom Roberts, who did the cover. Um, a bit of library-based artwork that I will hopefully be able to show off in due course. And I sent him these as a sort of, this is the sort of ballpark that that I see these animal guys, and I was hoping that he would be able to include them in the piece of artwork. So I won't name them in case of spoilers or whatnot, but this one looks uncannily like Wobble, but is in fact, I can name him, is in fact Wentworth from the book. Um, so um, I'm talking here about ratings on Goodreads, and one of the reasons that I again, another thing I do is I go into these reviews here, whoops, and I filter on 5 stars, and this is not because I'm an egomaniac. It's because again, you just there's no point upsetting your equilibrium by delving into the opinions of people who hate the book. And what I'm doing here is I am clicking the like button on some of those 5 star reviews to thank the people who took the trouble to make those reviews. And also when I like it, it becomes visible in the timeline for my account. And so many of the people who follow me will see that. And it becomes yet another way of generating visibility for the book. And I was going to talk about why this sort of thing is so important. Just the whole rating, talking about uh, the book from you guys, from readers, because readers are um, the main engine going forward for sales. I mean, you can get a book to #1 on the New York Times bestseller list or the Sunday Times bestseller list if a publisher pumps, it has to be a decent book, but if a publisher pumps sufficient money such that the front displays of all the major bookshops are walls of this book, then it will become a bestseller. But after that, and that only lasts, in the first month or whatever. After that, it has to be someone who has read the book insisting that someone else read the book too. Um, and I'm going to take us to a blog post where I sort of examine not in a very serious level, but I examine the mathematics of that and show just how um, important it is. Let me swig my coffee. So the blog post is called "The Numerical Knife Edge," and it concerns spherical cows. So there's an old joke highlighting the difference between the scientific approach of different disciplines, and it's that this farmer wants his cows to give more milk, so he hires a physicist, an engineer, and a psychiatrist. And the psychiatrist comes in and looks at the barn and says, "Well, if we paint these walls green, will encourage the cows and relax them, and they'll produce more milk." And the engineer is talking about sort of, oh, if we put in feed hoppers here and we give them this much space, and or we feed them at these intervals. And the physicist comes in and says, imagine each cow is a sphere, because that's the approach physicists take, that they drastically simplify problems and then tackle the simplified problem and see what insights it gives you into the more complex real problem. So there's this sort of ongoing joke in physics about spherical cows. And what my treatment here is a sort of spherical cow treatment, where I drastically simplify the mechanics of readers recommending books and show the consequences of it, without saying that this is a serious treatment, but saying there's a lesson we can learn there. And what I say is, imagine that we've got these two authors. One is Mark and one is Maz, and they both write really good books. And there's very little difference between them, except that the book Mark wrote means that of each reader who reads that book manages to convince 1.05 new readers to read the book. So it's a sort of like a disease model. Readers on average for that book are so enthused by it that they go out and they demand other people read it, and their success rate is 1.05. And Maz's book is also very good, and the people who read that book, they rush out and they also try and convince people to read it, but their enthusiasm is ever so slightly less, and they only manage to convince 0.95. So there's a formula for working out what the total number of sales is using this model after a certain amount of time. And it's using a little bit of mathematics that is taught in sort of, we call it A level in England, but it's sort of, if you did mathematics past about 16 at school, then you would be learning about how to sum different types of infinite series. Um, and this is a geometric series, and the formula can be employed. If we start with, say, that there was 100 people who bought and read the book to begin with, and in this formula here, there's an R and an N, and the R is the rate at which existing readers, will convert new readers, and that will be for the two cases 0.95 or 1.05. And then we take N, let's give ourselves 78 weeks, so let's say just over a year. And you plug those numbers into that formula, and they've got almost identical numbers. The only difference is a 0.95 as opposed to a 1.05. And that's indicated here by the difference in height of these two little men. So one is 1.05 units and one is 0.95 units tall. After 78 weeks, Maz has sold just under 2,000 books and Mark has sold nearly 90,000 books. So that tiny difference here is magnified by that process. It's just like the R numbers we've been hearing about in the COVID pandemic, really. If it's slightly below 1, the disease fades away, your book fades away. And if it's slightly above 1, it expands exponentially. And now if I take these two little guys and I scale them by these numbers of sales after a year and a bit, their relative heights are like that. So yes, that's a drastic spherical cow approximation, but it's also showing you just how vital it is that readers go out and convert new readers for you, and that even a small difference on a sort of weekly basis can make a vast difference after a year. So people just rating the book on Goodreads, that means that it goes into their personal timeline, and anybody who is a friend or a follower of them on Goodreads will see that. And it's part of that. One of the ways that books sell is by repetition, by people seeing the book, seeing good things about it, not just once. It's far, I feel, more effective if they see it 10 times in the periphery than if they see one glowing testimonial and then nothing else. But it's that drip, 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 which slowly moves people towards reading certain books. And as I say, if you rate it on Goodreads, if you rate it on Amazon, if you talk about it on Twitter or on book forums, that's all part of the process that turns that 0.95 into a 1.05 and can determine the success or failure of a book over an extended period. All of which is to say that clearly a lot of you have been doing that, and that's why we have this rise in ratings, which corresponds to a rise in sales in the real world. And I think that's all I've got to say on that. I will encourage you to keep on doing it. At the moment, I have written this space comedy, which I wrote after the Library trilogy, and then that's sitting with my publishers at the moment. I've recently completed about 5-6 chapters of a grimdark fantasy. Publishers have been sort of saying, "Why don't you write some more grimdark, Mark?" So I've written that, and I'm going to send that to my agent on Monday, and see if Voyager, my UK publisher, like the look of that, and maybe they will give me a new book contract. And in the meantime, I'm thinking of writing maybe a short story or novella based on around the Library trilogy, just to sort of give people who are waiting for the next one, which should come out in April, something to read in the meantime. So I better go and do that, and I will leave you guys alone. Let me just stop the recording.